Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this conversation. I hope that there will be some questions around integrated marketing. I'll basically just start by introduce really quickly how I do. Again, it's before we jump, it will be really loud about the content and how we run integrated marketing. But just so that for people who don't know, we're the #1 open source business applications, and we basically have business apps that are integrated for about anything from CMS, e-commerce, marketing like survey, events, mass mailing, down to CRM, billing, and accounting. So it's a full suite of business applications used by 2 million people, and we are integrated globally by 550 partners. So just to give you a flavor of the company, I'm working with like about 250 employees, and offices in San Francisco, in Belgium, and in Asia. So who am I? As well, just briefly, quickly introducing myself. I have a bit of mixed background. So this is a picture of my brain. I think so. And basically, I have a side which is like IT. So I work for IT. I'm pretty analytics in that sense. And I worked in business for McKinsey and worked as an SME manager. So I know if you work in SME, I know some of the challenges. And I've got some as well in MBA. So it's basically, I got this mix, dual things going to my brain. So I'm sorry if sometimes, I'm losing you on one side or the other, just the way I am. So just to coming directly into the topic of the day. Question is, okay, what do you need today? Okay, it's a rhetorical question, you don't need to answer. But basically, the first thing that comes to your mind when you need something is to go to Google, okay? When you need, a new clothes, new shoes, anything, you're thinking about Google. What's interesting is that when the CTO of a telecommunication company thinks he needs a new satellite communication, he might as well do that, right? So what used to be consumer behavior is now moving to basically B2B behavior. Okay, so you see basically a converging trend. It's called in IT as well the consumerization of IT. So you see that behaviors that used to belong to consumers are now moving as well to the business world. Okay, and you see as well that basically people are, because they have that information on their fingertip, they become more and more blind to what you push on them, to traditional advertising. This is not new. It's just that it's becoming so pervasive that what Forrester and Gartner are predicting, and maybe you have seen that somewhere already, but by 2020, 80% of the buying process will actually be done without human-to-human interaction, okay? So you can do what you want. As a marketer, it can be frustrating, right? You can say, okay, well, what am I doing here? But basically, people, they have done the research, they will type in Google, whether they are, a very low-income consumer, or whether they are, a CEO of CTO of Boeing or of British Telecom. They will go on Google, they will do the search, they will do their, free trial, free whatever, and then at some point, they might contact you, but it will be 80% decided, okay? So it's good for the sales, but it can be frustrating as well for either for sales and marketing. Sorry. So the question is, okay, now what do we do? Now, should we shout louder, right? Because they are far away from us, and they don't want human-to-human interaction. I'm human, so I'm just shouting louder. We don't think that's necessarily the best approach. It can work, but we are moving on to a new approach, a new marketing approach, okay? So you hear a lot about today. There's, there are theater plays about content marketing, usually popular. There are places about, automated marketing automation, which is very nice too. I think the whole point is that it's just a new marketing, right? The old marketing as we know it is dead. Okay, so we're moving into a new marketing area which will be completely different. So these are a few of the traits that are different. Previous marketing used to be a lot about campaigns, right? I run a campaign, there's a beginning, there's an end, there's a lot of, media that can come into it, a lot of money, a lot of agencies, creative work. When new marketing is always on, there's no campaign. Basically, there's an ongoing campaign if you want, but everything or most of the things are really running every single day. Okay, so it's a different, it's a different way to think about marketing. It used to be more an art than a science. It's more moving to a science because you can measure everything, you can do analytics on it. It used to be a few big bets, a few campaigns where you put massive amount of money and then you hope that they're going to pay off. It's now moving to many small bets. It used to be like two skills, like a creative guy and somebody's running the campaigns, or more a project manager. You need many more skills now today. used to be spray and pray, so you spray a lot of things on TV, for instance, talking a lot of to as many million consumers as you can. It's not moving to hyper-targeted, where you can really tailor who you're talking to. And used to be about managing a funnel, from awareness to consideration to purchase. And it's now about addressing the decision journey, right? It's more taking a customer-centric point of view on how do you do marketing. So it's changed a lot. And that's why it's not about, my message today is that it's not going to be about, you need really to go into inbound marketing, you need to go into content marketing, you need to do about marketing automation. I think the message is going to be more about, okay, you need to rethink marketing, basically. And then maybe you do some of it, maybe you do none of it, but at least you've changed your approach. So the question is how, right? So that's why this is not going to be about, another campaign or case. It's going to be about, helping you define that journey and how you change the way you used to be marketing and how you're going to do marketing in the future. And you haven't done any marketing, it's good because you're starting from a blank sheet, which is always easier. So, but at least, I'm trying to give a few ideas, a few comparisons. We're still nowhere on this road, right? The marketing is going to continue to change over the next 10 years. So I'm just sharing a few thoughts based on what I've seen and what I've done. But it's not yet like a Bible. It probably will never be. So the first thing is, well, it's a framework I used to work a lot with when I was working for McKinsey. Is basically the customer decision journey, because it's a McKinsey framework, and it's basically rethinking from a customer point of view. Why? Because we are optimizing a journey where the buyer is in control. Okay, so you are no longer in control. The buyer is. Okay, the buyer is making decisions on his own time, on his own channel, or his own schedule. Okay, so. It's very important to draw that regularly on a page and to know where are your strengths and weaknesses. Where are your bottlenecks? Where do you lose people? Where do you gain people? Okay? So just to give you an idea, the initial consideration set, or ICS, if you are there, you have typically 3 to 4 more times chance to be bought at the end than if you are not there. But the good news is, if you are not there, people are not aware that you even exist. You can pop up when they're actively evaluating you. Okay, so you can pop up on Google. Say I'm looking for BMW car, and I see a nice maybe Renault car, which is popping out the first. I didn't know that brand. Just giving a silly example, sorry, but it's really about getting found. So that's why it's extremely important to change and throw away the old marketing funnel from awareness to consideration, because it only goes in one direction. But you can have people that enter the funnel in the middle of it, and that was not the case a few years ago, or very rarely. So if you do that, it's extremely important as well you don't mess up with it, right? You're not going to harass somebody with commercial messages when he's not buying, okay? Because he's not buying, he's into a lot of other stuff, and it's not about buying shoes or buying a software. It's about getting his problem solved, okay? So that's why it's very important. That's why content marketing as well can be important, because when you are there, so the person is not buying yet, most of your touch points should be non-commercial. Okay, it should be about solving the problem of the person, getting your brand out. Okay, when they are there, most of your touch points should be commercial because they are evaluating you. So they'll say, well, I really need a CRM. I'm going to a CRM software, so I'm going to look at a few alternatives and evaluate them. That's where you need really to strike with the value proposition, not with another webinar on how to drive your revenue with whatever. Okay, so there is, of course, you can be sometimes a bit commercial too here, but there is a clear difference. And then when they've purchased and you want them to go and to be loyal the next time they need something, and not going through the whole cycle of, hey, I need to buy something, am I going to the same shop as before, or am I going to change shops? Okay, you want them to do that, right? To be loyal, so that means not even doing an evaluation of an alternative, but going straight to you. And for that, you need to make sure your touch point are services, of course, like customer services is really key. So your commercial and non-commercial touch points as well are there, because you will still want to have non-commercial touch points so that you keep the relationship alive. So you don't mess up with a customer who is in control. So you need to make sure you know where he stands in the decision journey, basically. And if you know that, you can address the right touch point to the right person. So that's the fundamental. I mean, basically, if you have that in mind, you have it all. So that's just an example we do as well on Odoo. So we do we just started. So actually, I know it's not I even can brag that we have so much results. But just to give you an idea, so we started a blog called Business Hacks because the objective of Odoo, it's open source. You know, it's used by lots of people. Is to educate the world about business functions in general. So we don't try to surf on latest trend. We just try to go actually to the basics. Okay, so we say, okay, how to manage your stock. You know, what is LIFO versus FIFO, which you probably don't know about, but what is the point? How do you use a point of sale correctly? How do you mass mailing? You know, basic stuff. Why do we do that? Because we think, you know, the people that are not even interested to buy from Odoo might be interested to learn about this. Okay, so they are non-buyers. They are in our target group because they are SME owners, but are not buying. Okay, so we want to give them the content, non-commercial content. Okay, in the buying cycle. So how do you do? And actually, it's funny because I can learn from our mistakes. Initially, I was asking to our content people to do, you know, sometimes commercial blog posts about Odoo latest features, sometimes business hacks. And they couldn't figure out, right? They were just mixing commercial content with non-commercial content. They were talking about how to solve a problem and then saying how great Odoo was. It was bad. So actually the teams are separate now, but you really ideally you need both, right? So a few tips from great non-commercial content. First is you identify your buyer personas, their problems and their aspirations, what they want to do, what worries them, and their typical behavior. Because if you want to touch them, you need to know where they are, where they hang out. Are they on social media? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they, you know, elsewhere? Are they in forums? And when are they when they buy? And where are they when they don't buy? Okay. So if they're on Facebook, maybe that's where you should go. Then you need to find an internal line which is not too crowded. If you are starting to do non-commercial content marketing, which I think is a good idea, I like it. Don't forget you're actually starting up a media. You are becoming a media because you are going to compete with, you know, the big news provider like TechCrunch, Mashable, like whoever is already producing content there. So you shouldn't be scared about it because there's a lot of room for new content. But that means as well that you need to know where you're going to play, okay? And so, you know, there's a lot of space still in the content area to be to make your mark. And then, of course, you need to make unique, personal, use diverse formats from infographics, white papers, blog posts, and write tone of voice. And then you have to be patient because it doesn't pay off until 12 to 18 months. Okay, so it's not a quick win. Non-commercial content takes time because you're actually building awareness of your brand, and by the time you need to wait that the buyer is ready to buy. Okay, plus you need to build a subscriber base. Okay, so you need to build a list of followers. So it is so you need to have at least maybe somebody who is like half-time dedicated to that to make it successful. It's hard to make it work with less than that. But then the advantage as well is that there is a double advantage to it on our side. One is you build a list of subscribers that read, consume your content and share it. That's very important. The second part we are playing is that there is an SEO impact. There is a search effect. So if you have good content, there's a long tail of people who are going to look for it on Google and find it and find about your brand. So these are the two aspects that are equally important, actually. Now, you say, okay, we said, okay, today we are going to talk about how to get it right. So there are 4 things to get it right. The right objective, right positioning, right process, right people. I didn't mention right system because that would be too commercial and I would be banished from the speak. But basically you need a good system too, and I'll come to that with the KPI a little bit. So first, right objective and KPIs. So your objective of always-on integrated marketing is not to make sales. It's a bit, maybe it's provocative, but you need to make sure you have the mindset as well of, okay, we're not there just to close sales because you are going to be too commercial if you do that. But you need to get progress in the buyer journey. Okay, so what does that mean concretely? You need to have more buyers, including the brand in their ICS, in their initial consideration set. So if you want to say, okay, I want my buyers, so people who buy my products, when they think about buying shoes, if you sell shoes online, for instance, to think about me as a top 3 brands, top 4 brands. You need to have more buyers finding the brands when evaluating you, even if they are not in it. Of course, if they are in ICS, they don't find you, then you have a big problem, right? So if you think about your brand and then type in on Google and they don't find you, then you have a major problem. But what's on the other hand, if they don't think about you and they still find you when they look for something, then you have a great asset, because it means that you are well positioned on Google, and obviously it's a highly valuable. Then that's SEO. So more buyers evaluating you on the brand positively, of course, and more buyers buying the brand. So there's still a sale at the end of the funnel, of course. Otherwise, you will get fired as a marketer at some point. But it's not the only KPI you need to look for. So, and the first step is, of course, to know who your buyers are in general. What I mentioned about buyer personas is the first step. So coming back to the objective, and that's where you see the full list of objectives coming. We started from a framework with a customer decision journey. You say, okay, my goal is to influence that journey. So how is each of the marketing levers falling into those objectives? That structure is important, because if you don't structure your effort, you're going to be running like I did, like headless chicken, right? Say, hey, I talked about content marketing. Hey, I heard about SEA. I heard about retargeting. I heard about this and that, and we need to do that. And obviously, you can never say no, because you don't really know whether it's going to be useful and how. So if you have clear objective based on that, then you can move to having levers. What can you do that are associated with those objectives? So more buyers, including the brand in the ICS. So before they buy, which brands they have in mind. Non-commercial content I mentioned. Outbound telemarketing. So you say, okay, basically it's very bad in a way. It's very inefficient. But if you do onboard marketing, at least you get your brand out. Display ads, offline campaigns, of course. More buyer find the brand at SEO, SES, so and trade shows. Okay, so I say sometimes that these events are like Google. It's the offline Google, right? It's for people that search, except that instead of typing Google, you come here, and that's nice. I appreciate, because it's a little bit more of an engaging contact than just typing in on Google and looking at our website. More buyers evaluating the brand positively. There's a huge industry just on that. So, but maybe you don't need any of it, because everybody that's think about you eventually buys you, a very high proportion. So maybe you don't have a problem there. But it's about website user experience, of course. Lead nurturing. So how do you send email campaigns to nurture your leads? Events, webinar. I say events are mostly about lead nurturing or your people that know you, because if you do your own events, people that have never heard about you, it's hard to make them come to your event. They need to know you from somewhere. Retargeting. So people don't know if people know what retargeting is. So people that come to your website, you can serve them ads, banner ads in other websites. You probably had that experience somewhere. That's nurturing, right? People have been to your website, they know you, and you're going to retarget them when they are surfing on the web, so that they click and they come back to your website. It's a very classical marketing event, but it's really about, again, about nurturing. And then there's commercial content marketing, right? So when they are in the buying process, you send them a white paper with a nice case study. You invite them to a webinar with another demo. So you make sure that you have great content and that you can use to actually then convince them to buy. Okay, so you move from non-commercial to commercial content there. And then of course you need to basically do the last mile. How to get them to buy? So for that you have the classical marketing lever like promotions or reactivation campaign. People that say no, I'm not interested. At some point they might be interested again. So you reactivate them. It's called. It can be pretty effective as well. You thought they were dead, and they were, but they come back to life at some point. So all those levers, it's not that, the idea is not to be completed, but the idea is to say, okay, focus your priorities based on where you think you have a problem. If you don't have a nurturing problem, don't do that. If your problem is that you have an awareness problem, people don't find you, and you are bad at SEO, which most people are, because it's hard and it takes a lot of time. So if you are new to the game, you'll be very bad. You'll be very low in the search results. Then maybe you can still invest in that, because if your brand is out through social media, through content, basically you stand a better chance than fighting the Google fight.